Thanks for staying with us on the Sports Show. The SANFL is lighting it up at the moment. It's been a magnificent year for the SANFL, and the final series is certainly not disappointed, boys.
Not at all.
So we go to the master of it. Luke Marchioro joins us. Let's talk about Glenelg and Norwood first, mate. Were you surprised?
Not necessarily. I think Norwood played quite well. Probably the Matty Snook injury really swung the game.
That was the one.
Glenelg were a couple of goals in front and playing some good footy, and then Matty Snook came off halfway through that second quarter, and with Luke Partington probably being a little bit underdone, it really hurt Glenelg's midfield, and Norwood really took control of the game from that point on.
Boyd dominated. The hit-outs was something like, in total, 60 to 24, I think it was. So they actually dominated the hit-outs, the ruck, the contest. So it's hard to win if you're that far behind the 8 ball with the hit-outs.
We've spoken about it all year with Glenelg. There's good ruckmen have beaten them all year. Brooksby and Strawn and these other guys have got them, and Boyd was no exception on the weekend. He gave that really quality Norwood midfield first use, and played some really good footy, and was probably really good around the ground as well. So Glenelg probably robbing Peter to pay Paul a bit, playing Mick Bean in the ruck, and that hurt their forward setup then as well.
It worked the week before though. So
it did,
they tried
but
again.
then again, Sturt don't have that dominant ruckman. Faye Sparks isn't on the level of Boyd, and that's where it probably got him on the weekend.
He got taken apart the week before, though, didn't he, Boydie? By
Strawn was fantastic against him the week before, so I think he had a bit of a point to prove on the weekend, and
proved it.
And
he had a great game for the Crows.
He was really instrumental for them as well. So
Lukey, what has he got to do? Because he's going to come up against this bloke again this weekend, isn't he? He's going to come up against Strawn or whatever. Boyd.
Yep. I think he's got to go to school on what Mitch Harvey did on Sunday. Mitch Harvey really got him around the ground.
Yeah.
Probably didn't chase him as much into defence. What you see is quite often is the Crows will push their ruck into the forward line and have Himmelberg and someone sit back.
Yeah.
Harvey sat back a little bit, was that outlet kick. So when the Crows were winning contests in the North 50, they were kicking the ball straight out to Mitch Harvey quite a bit as well. So whether that's something that they look at and they ruck their forward, like North ruck Hilda, whether they can do that with a McLean and sit Boyd out and conserve a bit of energy to get Strawn around the ground where he's such a good runner and he's so good as well.
Yeah.
I was really surprised how well Norwood played. I know they've just been
the week before.
Yeah, probably the last month really they've just been scraping and winning in games, and then to take Glenelg they did. So they must have got a lot of confidence over the weekend, and obviously the week before losing to the Crows like they did as well.
They probably took a little bit out of that last quarter. They got a really good last quarter out of Manny Panos, who missed some footy against the Crows the week before and was really instrumental on the weekend. So they did a few other little bits and pieces. Jay Ranton will play predominantly forward, a little bit less through the midfield, and kick some goals on the weekend. And they threw some stuff around, and I think they just played with a bit more freedom, and I think they really stood up after a disappointing week the week before.
We were critical of Norwood last week. We were really critical of Norwood because they were poor. But we were critical of the fact that they played some players that were underdone, which they had to do because there's nowhere else to play.
Exactly right.
And those guys you're talking about, like Panos, different player this week to what he was last week, and a couple of others as well. So
Bigger ground might have helped them too. I think the bigger ground.
Absolutely, mate.
Certainly Norwood looked great in the last quarter. They opened them up in the last quarter with their speed. Normally they've been really dogged defenders and haven't had that speed going forward, but they were pretty impressive. Yeah,
but even still, Lockie Hosey took a mark and had a shot at goal to make it 9 points of difference with 8 minutes to go. So, in another world, he kicks that and it's a really close finish. So, I think they were two pretty even teams. Norwood probably had a little bit more class and a bit more quality through the midfield, and that was the difference in the game.
Right, let's talk about Crows North Adelaide. I don't know how you saw it, but I thought that game went up a level on the Glenelg-Norwood game with intensity and the pace it was played at.
Absolutely. I think these are the two best teams in the competition, and they showed it on the weekend. They played a really frenetic, high pressure game of footy, really high quality skills as well. Some of the field kicking in that game was really fantastic, and I thought both of those teams played really well. And I think North Adelaide, when they stopped with that slow kicking that they played for probably the first 2.5 quarters, they really took the game on. Probably halfway through that third quarter, I think they only had 15 marks for the game after the halfway mark of the third quarter, and they really played on, and they took the Crows on with their speed, and they gave them a few headaches in the forward line.
Yeah, mate, they named 8 best players, North Adelaide. They named 8 best players in the paper here. I don't know who picks them or whatever, but Andrew Moore didn't get a mention. I find that some of the work he did when it was really, really tough was brilliant. He should have been in the best 5 at least. I
think you could throw a lot of North Adelaide players under that blanket. I think him especially on the inside where they've got that real quality on the outside with Spina and Wig. He's a really good balance for them as well. So I think they played some really good footy, but I think the thing for me was they were really slow with the footy in the first half. They gave Frampton and these Adelaide defenders a chance to set up behind the ball, and when they took the game on with a bit of speed, they didn't do that. They got more one-on-ones, they got out the back, and they kicked some easy goals.
There's always good stories in finals, isn't there? Harris Elrose, for me, is just one of those stories. I'm walking out on the ground having a chat with him, and one of the coaches says to me, "How's this for Elbrose?" A year ago, he's playing at Williston.
Yeah.
A year later, he's on Adelaide Oval. And I walked past him and I said, "Oh, how are you feeling, mate?" He goes, "Can't believe I'm on Adelaide Oval. How good's this?" You know, you could, it just
right,
and he was such an impact when he came into the game.
Oh,
Kicked a
really?
magnificent goal, grabbed one, you know, as a bounce, he tucked it in and kicked a goal and did some other things, and you go, they're just great stories.
They've got a few like that in North Adelaide. Frank Zeckley's another one who's had a fantastic season as well. Lockie Grubb's another one who's played some good footy. Sam McAderney's been there a long time. But these other unheralded guys have really made a big impact for North this year and have been a big part in terms of where they've stepped up as well. So not these big other names like, you know, Aaron Young who won the McGarry and that. I think these next level below has been the catalyst for North Adelaide this year.
That Wig is a classy player too. He just looks all class to me.
He's a fantastic user of the footy. He really is.
That was, in fact, that was what they were saying. Prior to the McGarry medal, that they felt that North had to probably share their votes, and perhaps they won't have a winner that way. But obviously they did with Aaron Young, which is fantastic. But they certainly got a lot of votes.
Oh, I tell you, the Cooney brothers for me are pretty special. But the guy who gets overlooked a lot is Harvey.
Yeah,
I think he does a mountain of work for them, and it just sometimes he just doesn't get the accolades he deserves, I reckon.
I think he only polled 4 votes in the McGarry on Monday night, but I think he's had some real influence on games. There's a couple of games, you know, this year where he would have been the best player on the ground. I thought the Glenelg game earlier in the year, he was probably the best player when they played him at the Bay Oval. So there's a few, you know, he's been really important for them. He's given their midfielders first use, and it's such a quality midfield. When you can give them first use, they're really, really dangerous as well. So they won without Lockyer kicking many goals and Hilda kicking many goals, and they still kicked the winning score on the weekend. So they're going to be pretty dangerous whoever plays them in 2 weeks' time.
The thing with Mitch Harvey was that he was a centre-half forward. He wasn't a ruckman. He wasn't a ruckman at all. He changed his game and his frame to become that ruckman, because he was a very good centre-half forward, a classy centre-half forward. Don't worry about that.
Pretty classy.
So he's changed his body shape and whatever to become that ruckman in the off-season, which I think's excellent, because he's a smart player.
He's such a smart footballer. His hands are beautiful. You notice it when he taps in there. He's tapping off hand in the ruck, and some of his handball work on the inside is really good as well.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
that's something that's not really common for big blokes. It's more of that forward skill, and something that he's really used and North Adelaide have exploited this season.
And who's got it this weekend, do you think? Crows or Norwood? Who do you...
History would say that it's really tough to beat the same team twice in 3 weeks. I do think the Crows, that would have taken a lot out of them on Sunday. I think Norwood would have gone with a lot of confidence on the weekend.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a coin flip either way. If I had to do it, I'd probably say Norwood. The Crows have got a couple of injury concerns. So Ben Davis was in doubt as well. I think Braden Cook got an injury on the weekend as well. So all of a sudden there's a couple of guys there that you have to take out, and you're bringing in these, you know, developmental players or these top-up guys. So it just creates some more opportunities for Norwood. So I think
Jade
Norwood in a
Rawlings
close
did
game.
say, didn't he? Jade Rawlings did say that they played Norwood footy, which is an interesting comment, because the week before I think they played Kelvinator footy.
And mate, just quickly, we've got to wrap it up. I'm walking out of the ground. I can't tell you the number of people that came up to me and said, "I'm glad North Adelaide won, because I don't think the Crows should be playing in the finals." Is there a stage where you think the SANFL is going to look at it next year and go, "Happy for the Crows, happy for Port to be in, but their games don't count"?
I think it's such a poison chalice at that point when you start going to that thing. I think if you let them walk into an AFL reserves competition, you can probably take the best 2 players out of every team in the competition, because they're probably going to have more of a salary cap to offer these guys money. So if you take McBean and Partington out of Glenelg, or you know, Hamish Hartlett, instead of going back to Westies, which is a fantastic story, and he ends up playing for the Port Adelaide reserves. There's other things as well. So, you know, the TV money, there's $400,000 a year that the Crows put into the competition to actually play. These are all the things that people don't necessarily think about. It's, you know, digital streaming rights. The SANFL now is a really lucrative product for the SANFL. And so these are all the other considerations. It's easy for people to say, oh, we don't like the Crows, or we don't like the Port reserves being in. It's such a fine, delicate argument in terms of how it's set up. And, you know, it's easy for people to be political, but at the end of the day, the teams have made 2 grand finals in 10 years. I think they've had 5 final series combined in 10 years. They've been in the competition. And it's only when they seem to win that there's no AFL in the SANFL.
But what is scary is that Koshy came out and said, oh, we want to take our team out of the SANFL, we're going to play somewhere else. Yeah, you sort of think, hang on, you're going to do that? Because, you know, if the Crows decide to do that, their chairman decided to say, well, you know what, we don't like the scenario, we're going to take the Crows out of the SANFL. Well, hang on, that's a bit easier said than done.
I think it's inevitable anyway. I think there'll be a reserves AFL. If COVID hadn't have come, they were all geared up to bring the reserves into the AFL.
And part of it is going to be this new TV deal, is whether the AFL reserves may be part of this TV deal and help be part of this lucrative thing that's going to be in the TV contract.
So the other thing's crowd. The other thing is crowd. If the Crows
Mate,
happen
I
to
tell
get
you what,
through,
there's going to be a crowd throwing knives at us in a minute if we don't wrap this.
Yeah.
We're supposed to go about 2 minutes ago, mate. So.
If Adelaide do make the GF, I think the SANFL will be generally worried about numbers. I think, North, whatever, but I'm not sure Adelaide's got a big following in the SANFL. Most of these people follow North or Nord or Third or whoever. So I'd be a bit concerned that way, but I don't mind them being in. I don't mind Port and Adelaide being in the competition. They're boys. They're boys. Boys or injured players.
All right, we need to bring this conversation up next week because we've got to wrap it up. Luke, always great to catch up with you, mate. Can't wait to hear what you've got to say next week about who's playing in the grand final. Stay with us still. A bit more to come.